Hi, this is Dina for Splitcoaststampers. In this tutorial, I wanted to share the basics for carving your own stamps. To get started, there are some tools that you'll need. You'll need a carving block. The one that I've used here is called Speedy Carve. It's pink and it's made by Speedball. It's a soft linoleum block that's easy to cut and it doesn't crumble. You'll need a carving tool with a few different blades. Here I've used a Speedball lino cut tool for the video. The handle that I'm showing here comes in a set with 5 blades, and I just used 2 of the blades here. You'll need a sharp craft knife, a number 2 pencil, a piece of paper or cardstock, and an image to trace, or an image that you've drawn, a cutting mat, and StazOn ink. I'll share more information about tools and supplies in the Split Coast forums if you're interested in knowing more, and I'm sure that others from the community will share as well. To begin, I've sketched out a simple leaf here in my sketchbook, and I'm tracing the image onto tracing paper. For the type of transfer method that we're going to use here, it's important that you use a pencil that has a soft lead. The one that I'm using here has a rating of HB or number 2. If you're just starting out with stamp carving, I would recommend choosing a solid image or a larger, more blocky image that has straight lines, broad curves, and wide angles. And then as you practice, you'll be able to progress to images that are outlined or have more details like tight corners or patterns. I've traced that outline pretty heavily, and I'm going to put the paper pencil side down to transfer the image onto the carving block. Be sure to hold the paper still and then burnish it with your thumbnail or a bone folder to transfer the drawing onto the block. There are other ways to transfer images, but this one works pretty well for images like this. These carving blocks come in different sizes. This one was 4 by 6 inches, and you can see that I've already gotten several stamps out of it, and I do have room for several more. You'll want to trim around the image about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch from the outline, just to give yourself a border and something to hang on to while you're working. I'm going to begin carving with this Speedball tool, and I want to use the smallest tip to start. This is the number 1 V gouge tip, and it produces a pretty fine line, so it's a great one for outlining the image. I can store the other tips inside the handle of the tool, and then the tip fits into a rounded groove in the business end of the tool. That opens up when you loosen the end, and it fits snug inside there when you tighten it. There are a couple of different ways that you can hold the tool, but I tend to hold it this way with my index finger on top to guide the blade and keep it steady and flat as I go. As you carve around the outline, you'll want to keep the flat back of the tip against the block to make sure that the blade doesn't gouge into the block too deeply. While you're learning to carve, you'll want to use long strokes and work slowly and carefully. Always cut away from you and be careful of your fingers. If you have an inside corner, it's actually better to work from the corner out rather than going into the corner from both sides. Also, if you're cutting around a curve, it's best to turn the block to meet the blade rather than trying to turn the blade into a curved cut. It's kind of the same as when you're fussy cutting. You turn the paper to your blade rather than trying to manipulate your scissors to the paper and to the line. I had a little trouble on this project turning the block because I was working on top of this cutting mat, and it went a lot easier when I moved that out of the way. So continue carving until you make your way around the entire outline, and when you're done with that, you can cut out any details inside the image that you have marked. Remember that the areas you remove will be your negative space when the image is stamped. So even though I have an outline image drawn here, since I'm carving on the lines instead of between the lines, my stamped image is going to be mostly solid. With the outline completed, I'm going to switch blades in my cutter, and I'm going to be using a larger blade. This is the number 5 U gouge, and I'm going to use that blade to cut away the surface of the block outside of the outline that I just cut. I can use that outline as a guide, and I hold the blade at a slight angle so I get a curve down from the edge of the stamping area. Again, for this stage of cutting, you'll want to cut away from you. Watch your fingers. And cut away everything from the block that you don't want to show up when the stamp is inked. When you feel like you have enough of the excess block cut away, take a StazOn ink pad or another permanent ink pad and ink up the entire surface of your block. And this is going to give you a pretty good preliminary indication of where you might still need to do some touch-up work. When the ink is dry, you can continue carving away in the areas that are inked that you don't want to print when you stamp your image. Usually these areas will be in between your U-gouge strokes or right against your narrow outline. The edge of the block may also print, so you can use a craft knife to cut those edges in closer and then cut them down at an angle so that they don't pick up the ink. Next, I'm going to ink up this stamp and stamp it this time on a piece of scratch paper. Actually, I just grabbed an envelope here. And because the block itself does have a little give to it, chances are that more areas are going to show up that need to be carved away, and that turns out to be true. So this step is going to be repeated several times as I print and check and then carve away some more until I'm happy with the way the stamp is printing. If you need to add very fine details or sharp angles to your outline, or if you need to get right up against the outline that you cut before, you can use a craft knife to cut the block. For your first cut, hold the blade straight up and down to go along the outline and cut down into the block about 1/16 of an inch. To complete the cut, you're going to make a second cut and you're going to angle the blade for about 30 to 45 degrees and cut down into the first line from outside the outline. You're basically creating that V-gouge shaped cut, but with 2 cuts instead of 1. The rest of the process from here is just repeating those final steps of testing and refining the image until you have a perfect print. So I'm going to speed up the video to finish out. If you want to carve your own stamps, there really is no limit to the images you can create. If you don't feel confident drawing your own images, you can trace free clip art or just cut straight lines to make patterns for background stamps. The graphite transfer that I did at the beginning of the video was really easy. You actually can draw directly onto the block with pencil or pen. Just remember that your image will be reversed when you stamp it, so keep that in mind if you're carving a word or if the direction of the image is important to you. And again, we'll have more information in the forums as well. Here are a couple of cards that I created with my leaf stamp. In this one, I just repeated the image to create a background using VersaFine ink. And I paired it with a big thank you stamp from Concord and 9th. I really like how the VersaFine ink worked with both of those stamps. For the second card, I created another background using archival ink. And on the right hand side, I carved a block scrap with some straight lines and just created the background on the right just by repeating that pattern. I hope you're inspired to give stamp carving a try, and we would love to see what you come up with, so please share your carved creations in the gallery. Thank you so much for watching.